Let me ask you if you would jump in for a moment and comment on this as well.
Parents aside, I mean, my parents came to this country in their 40s, but my brothers and sisters came here at a very young age, and they started school in the 5th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and they had an opportunity to go through the school system to learn as much as they could, not just about the language or the customs and the values and traditions of America, but it failed them. They didn't get the language they needed. They didn't get all the instructions that others got. And so as soon as they were able to graduate, and luckily they didn't drop out, but they stuck in there. They were stuck in ESL. They were stuck in the lowest remedial classes possible, but they stuck in there and they graduated. But they didn't drop out. But to address, again, the need to try to assimilate these kids as much as you can actually won't take you very far. Many of the kids in the Southeast Asian communities in the past few years have been depressed, have been traumatized, and where are these issues stemming from? It's stemming from the lack of pride, it's the lack of understanding their own heritage, the lack of not being able to connect with their own parents and the language of their own parents and the history of their own parents. So there's so much conflicting interest for these kids to deal with, and I think it's really hard, and then it adds on to the difficulties that they're already enduring right now. So there's so much, and I mean, just to think of the resources that are needed within my community in the East Bay, across from San Francisco, the community-based organizations are in desperate need of psychological services, of after-school tutoring, and they don't have people from within their own community that they trust who speak their language, because they have tried to speak and learn English as much as they could. But you know, when you've been a farmer all your life and know very little of your own language besides speaking, like my mom, she's illiterate in English and Lao. So having to come from that kind of background and then to try to adapt as best as you can to this society is an extremely demanding expectation. And from my experience and from what I've seen, it's not always the most realistic expectation. So we do try as much as we can, and that's why all these other organizations like the CRAC, like Latin American National Alliance and the Hmong National Development, they are working as hard as they can to make up for all that the other systems are lacking.
Do you think it happens to be because of what's happened to our society now, that it's so fractured that we don't have a nuclear family anymore, that's causing it?
I want to hurry up and get to the other questioners. However, I will say this. I will take this personal privilege as a moderator to say the fact that there are so many different cultures and backgrounds and perspectives represented in our country is not a deficit. It, in fact, is a strength of what makes America great. I come from a country where more than 20 different languages are spoken. We don't have these kinds of discussions in Liberia. And I think the quicker we find ways to move away from the assumption that this is, in fact, a deficit, the better off we will all be as a people. Now, I'm going to ask all of you there, very respectfully, if you could sort of just rapid fire, give me your questions as briefly, or your comments as briefly as possible, because we have arranged for a reception for all of you this evening, and there's one more item that I'd like to get through with all of you before we move into our reception. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Barbara Alexander. I'm also from Newman Crows Planning Unified School District. I'm also the branch manager in Newman, and I'm just wondering, how realistic is this new tracking of the students with this identifier number? I mean, where are we going to get the money from, number one? Where's this money coming from? Is what that Superintendent O'Connell talked about, with the budget fractured the way it is. And we're talking about helping our students and helping our children. As the town librarian, I see it every day. I see parents bringing their children in, and they don't want to teach their children English because they get the books, and the books are in their language because they feel that they're getting rid of their culture, and they want their children to learn their culture. So I see this every day. And so the children go to school in kindergarten and first grade. They know no English. And we've made this by bilingual, supposedly society, but when we say bilingual, we mean Spanish, English. We don't say Asian culture. When anytime you say bilingual, the first thing people think of is Mexican. They don't think of people coming from other countries, Asian, East Indian. And so it's like these people are thrown away. They have to learn English. So my question is, how realistic is it for us to think that having an identifier number and having superintendents accountable for their district, how is it going to help our dropout rate if we can't come together on the basics of what we need to learn before we even get to school?
I will just briefly say, and then I'll turn it over to the panelists who may want to comment. California already has a data system in place, and I think that's part of what Superintendent O'Connell was trying to allude to. A few years ago, the National Governors Association came together and came to an agreement around these unique student identifiers and common ways of defining and reporting and using data. So a lot of that's already in place. It certainly needs to be strengthened and improved upon, but making those improvements aren't necessarily going to require large infusions of additional financial resources. A lot of that already exists on the books. Anyone else would like to comment? No?
I do want to make one note. I mean, research that has found that students who are bilingual are the highest achieving students in the system.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, in 20 years of working with families of immigrants with kids who are trying to learn English, that I've never met one that does not want to learn English, that does not want their kid to achieve in school and succeed. So I think that it doesn't have to be an either or. You know, it's like love. You can have another kid and you're going to love them both. You know, you can embrace your old culture and learn a new one. I think.
We're going to get John some dark glasses in a moment.
Some of these parents also, their educational attainment may be quite low as well, and it's as simple as that. Reading in their own language they know, but it's incredibly crippling for a parent not to be able to help their child. It's incredibly crippling. I know it through my own experience.
Yes, ma'am.
I am Sam Lee Mat. I am a representative for Lao Culture Community Center here in San Diego. I'm also working in engineering field. I'm a mother. I'm a student still. I've been here when I was 18, going into 10th grade, learning how to speak English. Now, I really am for the comprehensive approach, and I acknowledge that we need better structure in school. We need quality teacher, and et cetera, et cetera. But one thing that we all agree that parent is one of the critical component to help the student succeed. So now for the Southeast Asian community, like Dr. Sayawong said that the parents don't even speak English or write English or their own language. Now, if the parent is really critical, who will tell the parent how to help their teacher, how best to help their student to cope not only in different culture, but also in the school system that is not known to the parents. Mm-hmm. So I think we need the community leader. We need to train them to work with the parents. This is what I think is missing. I don't know if you have any program that's really bring this into a reality in educating the parents. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. And that really is what we were trying to get at, or at least part of what we're trying to get at with our recommendation 5, where we talk about investing communities in student success. So building on and strengthening things like the Maldives Parent School Partnership Initiative, or other kinds of things that enable parents of all backgrounds to be more critically involved in what's happening with their students, with their kids.